Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the M3 Market Update. Today is November 7th, and I'm here to bring you some not your typical programming. This is breaking news, mortgage news. Believe it or not, I mortgage can seem very boring, but it really is the backbone to our liquidity system in many ways. And so, want to talk about some events that have transpired over the last couple of days that aren't getting the press that they deserve. And so the first one is going to be the Mr. Cooper hack. Mr. Cooper is one of the largest originators and servicers in the United States with 4.1 million borrowers. In many ways, they remind me a lot of GMAC from the last cycle. They bought some of those assets as well as just from their kind of size and scale. So a big player in the mortgage, backed security market. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about some breaking news last night about, a potential raid of a multifamily broker. And then today some news about Meridian being under investigation with Freddie Mac. And we'll also talk about a very obscure agency called the DTCC and what that might mean. So lots happening, but this hack and the fact that it has not gotten mainstream media air is very concerning. And it comes down to what I was trying to talk to you about when I did the first sort of installment on mortgage-backed securities and how that all works. And if you kind of can remember, basically what happens is you have these originators that will originate a loan, and then they're going to sell it to one of the GSCs, or they're going to sell it for securitization in a Ginnie Mae backed security. And so a lot of times smaller lenders also deliver loans to people like Mr. Cooper, and then they package them up and sell them. But at the end of the day, what you need to understand about this entire transaction is it's just about moving dollars around. And so they sell these things, they might then purchase mortgage backed securities. Why would they purchase a mortgage backed security? So they can pledge that asset and borrow more money. Let me step back. This is all really confusing, and I'm going to do my best to explain it today. However, I know you're going to have a lot more questions, but what I want everyone to understand is firstly that this is important and we all need to be paying attention. So, going back to that, Mr. Cooper specifically, the fact that there was a hack, the fact that their website has been shut down and they have not been able to take payments means that Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie, they are all going to expect Mr. Cooper to advance that liquidity to the trust, advance those payments. So even though Mr. Cooper could not take those payments, they are responsible for advancing out that money. Okay, so when you think about 4.1 million borrowers making payments of probably around 2,000 or higher, that's a lot of liquidity. Now, what could happen essentially when they're going to turn around, they're going to use either their cash, or they typically, most servicers have kind of an advanced facility that they will use to advance out to, they will pledge these mortgage servicing rate assets, and they'll use that facility when they do have to make advances when borrowers are delinquent. But guys, typically those facilities are not built to advance every single payment. So this was one of the things that was really concerning when COVID happened originally, is people were very worried about how these servicers, the non-bank servicers who do not have deposits, they do not have deposits. They do not have deposits. Sorry, I'm being a little crazy, but they absolutely have to rely on other funding when something like this happens, when delinquency happens. Well, what happened during COVID is we had the forbearance. In many ways, each of the agencies treated it a little differently, but after a certain point, you didn't have to advance anymore, or you could get loans. Other types of kind of liquidity arrangements, borrowings to cover that. and the servicers made it through. Some of them almost didn't make it through, like Round Point. They had to have someone come in and buy them, but they made it through with the help of Fannie, Freddie, and the government, et cetera, through, various lending facilities. Okay, we are post COVID now. That kind of hall pass is not going to be given. Now, will there be a bailout? Well, probably. Like, I'm not saying that, but what I want everyone to understand is that, so firstly, you have a situation where Mr. Cooper, and I keep wanting to call him Nation Star, but Mr. Cooper needs to advance out all of that liquidity. And if doing so, that they might be searching for different places, different collateral that they can pledge to be able to make that advance. So that's where these, things like these mortgage-backed securities really come in, because those are often used to pledge when you go to borrow elsewhere. Now, I am not the expert on how all of those transactions are. I would say, there's not many experts, but someone like Jeff Snyder at Eurodollar University, he understands a lot about, rehypothecation, collateral, pledging of assets. And when you don't have assets to pledge, that means that collateral is not available. And this is a very complicated machine where we don't understand all of the counterparty risk, because we don't know who's behind counterparty A, who might have a different counterparty behind them and a different. So this is the whole rehypothecation. If you go and you think about The Big Short, you think about the casino scene, I think with Serena Williams, and I'm going to place this bet, and then someone's placing another bet, and then someone's placing another bet. I mean, it's sort of that, but it's also about having the chips to place those bets. And right now, what is happening and what will happen is there won't be enough chips. And now, so that's one component. So number one, Mr. Cooper has to advance these funds to the trust. And that's how mortgage-backed securities work. So Mr. Cooper retains the servicing rate, and then they're responsible as the servicer to take those payments and advance that back to the holders of the mortgage-backed security. They don't have that money right now. Okay, so that's one component. The other component is that Mr. Cooper is a very big buyer in the industry. A lot of my clients sell to them, deliver these loans to them. They then package them up to sell, to the agencies as well. This is very complicated, but all of a sudden, you've got a big buyer who's probably not transacting in the market. Now, I don't have enough details to tell you this absolutely is happening right this moment, because there's no news out there. No mainstream media has picked this up. I have no clue exactly what's happening, who's getting hall passes, who's not getting hall passes, what this is even doing to my clients. I hope to find out a little later today. But essentially, you have a big player who's suddenly like stepping out of the market. So that is problematic for the capital markets, because guys, this isn't about producing anything. This is just about buying and selling for cash. Cash, collateral. And it's not like dollars like you think, but it's collateral to pledge against other borrowings, because we have so much debt. We live in a hyper financialized society that there's hardly any real assets out there at these companies. This is all about moving liquidity around. And I know I may sound a little bit like a crazy person today, but it's a little concerning that no one in mainstream media is talking about one of the largest taker of mortgage payments in our country right now. I don't understand that. I saw one news show on KARE 11 NBC in Minnesota. That was it. So why? And it's being picked up by some of the industry press like Housing Wire, etc. But this is a massive hack. There are many so health insurance, health companies, or healthcare industry probably has as much sensitive data as mortgage, but mortgage has so much sensitive data. They have everything about you. They have all of your credit history. They have your social security numbers. Again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but this is a massive hack. 4 million people in our country are impacted. We don't know the scale yet, but this is big and no one's talking about it. Okay, so again, here you have a problem for Mr. Cooper, who is not going to be able to, or is going to have to be stretched thin to advance that cash to the holders of the trust. Okay, and if they don't do that, you know, that gets them in trouble with Fannie and Freddie. This, and honestly, if things were working the way they're supposed to work, um, right now, Fannie and Freddie could be going to both of them and saying, we're pulling your servicing, period. We're pulling it to a hot backup. We don't trust that you can do this anymore. And this is something that was threatened to us at GMAC back during the crisis. As we were preparing for our bankruptcy, Fannie and Freddie threatened us that if we didn't clear our seriously delinquent loans, they would pull all of our servicing, they would take it away from us, impacting our employees, impacting our investors, etc. And typically each servicer is supposed to have a backup, so that something like this can there is someone to take these borrowers when something like this happens. So we have no news. We don't know what's going on. I'm just trying to kind of walk through the things that could happen. So both from a problem for Mr. Cooper, but a problem for, the holders of those securities, although I guarantee you they'll probably be made whole, a problem for Mr. Cooper not being able to transact in the marketplace. Big deals, okay? That's that. Then we hear last night about a potential raid on a large commercial multifamily broker. So we don't know exactly sure who that was, but then this morning there was an article from The Real Deal about Meridian. Now Meridian asked, I have worked with these guys. I remember very clearly the first time I ever worked with them at a smaller shop, and what we used to say in that shop was that they had no idea what they were doing. They were very naive about the market, very naive about documentation, not very thorough. And a lot of old players there. Is Meridian who got raided by the FBI? Was there a raid by the FBI? I can't tell you for sure either way. Again, we don't have enough news. The Real Deal, it seems to be one of the only folks talking about it. No mainstream media, so we're waiting to hear. But if there was a very interesting sort of rule change by FHFA, which is the governing body over Fannie, Freddie, and the FHLB, just a few short months ago about severing counterparty relationships. So I believe that this probably isn't the only bad actor. And there could have potentially been a raid on another organization. I got a lot of tips yesterday about who that was. I'm not going to say it. We'll see what happens. But this, guys, at the end of the last cycle, I tweeted this out. Taylor Bean Whitaker, also accused of mortgage fraud, also not handled very well by the GSEs. They kind of stormed Taylor Bean Whitaker. They came in, they took all the collateral. Now, today, very different situation. Typically, all of your collateral or those mortgage notes are held in a custodian off-site, except typically in times of default, you bring them back into your shop. Very long, complicated. Nobody wants to know about that. But unlikely, for instance, that all that collateral was sitting there at Meridian. But my point is that when events like this happen, there are a lot of downstream implications that nobody thinks about. I can tell you that Taylor Bean Whitaker was very expensive, and I had dealt with those headaches for many years because we could not proceed we didn't have our mortgage notes, so we couldn't proceed for our customers to take any action, like for instance in default. Very complicated, but just know these types of events are very disruptive. Now, if they were engaging, and they were a multifamily broker in the capital markets as well, from a commercial perspective, then that's blow two. That's number two to kind of, the capital markets, the liquidity, the collateral that is moving out there right now. Okay, so then we go to number 3, which is this announcement by the DTCC, which is this obscure agency that nobody even knows exists. I can guarantee you the name is, Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. I believe Eurodollar actually has done a couple episodes on DTCC. I couldn't find them this morning. There's a lot going on. But just know that this is the clearinghouse for trading. And they came out with an announcement about increasing a sort of look back period on your mortgage backed security assets, as well as changing the amount of collateral you have to post. I still don't have enough details to tell you exactly what all that means. There's no news about it. No one, so I started taping this at around noon on November 7th. As of this time, I couldn't find any mainstream news articles about that announcement yesterday. I couldn't find any mainstream news articles about Mr. Cooper outside of Housing Wire, One Mention, Real Deal, Tech News, no mainstream media. And as of right now, no mainstream media on this supposed, investigation of Meridian. And if there was some sort of FBI raid, we don't know. We probably aren't going to know for a few days. But let me just say that if what people are interpreting this DTCC memo to mean, which is you have to post more collateral, that's strike three in these capital markets. And so suddenly, you were able to get $5 for the $5 you posted. Now you're going to get $2 for the $5 you posted. And I'm being very simplistic. It's way more complicated than this, but that should give you an idea. And you needed those $3 because you needed to go pay your other counterparty that's clamoring for money right now. Am I getting some of this wrong? Potentially. I don't have enough information. I can only tell you how these things are supposed, like what potential impacts we could see from this. And guys, these three things together, and in fact, the Mr. Cooper hack alone could trigger a credit event in these markets, especially as vulnerable as they are right now. We've got, and something completely, off topic, but, we also have delinquencies rising right now. We saw our 90 plus delinquency tick up for the first time this year, and there's no COVID forbearance on the other side. And so why am I mentioning this in this show? Because I want you to think about those non-banks that are all transacting out there in the capital markets. Every single delinquent loan means they have to post additional capital in the capital markets. Okay, they don't have additional capital. They may all talk about how strong their balance sheets are and blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something. If you get let me explain, and I kind of did this in my other show, but for instance, I've got an FHA or VA or USDA loan that goes delinquent. I'm in the middle of doing a workout, a modification for them. I have to take my funds. I have to purchase that entire loan out of the pool. And then I have to redeliver it. And now I'm redelivering it at a higher rate, and I'm going to have to take in a haircut. Okay, well, hopefully I have a liquidity facility that I can use, a repurchase facility to repurchase that loan. But how big is that facility? What are my covenants? What are my tangible net worth covenants? So think about the Mr. Cooper situation again. I probably do have, an advanced servicer advanced facility, but written within that advanced facility is a tangible net worth covenant. So, okay, what happens when I don't have enough assets to pledge to that facility? Maybe now I have to pledge cash. I might have breached my covenant. Again, I'm just telling you the types of things that can happen. And as much as everyone wants to say that it's different this time, it is not. And this is very similar to a lot of the things that happened last time. It's just that most people don't understand these very obscure securitizations and capital markets and how all these things go together. People in the industry don't understand. And it's kind of like if you remember in The Big Short, when, the introduction is all about how, bonds are things your grandmother gives you. Nobody wants to understand it. And it is complicated, but at the end of the day, guys, it's kind of like that game where you're supposed to figure out, you have the shells and you have one, coin under one, and the trickster's just moving everything around. Where's the coin? Where's the coin? That's exactly what this game is like. Where is the actual coin? Because most of this are just these paper transactions that happen. And when the music stops, everybody's going to be looking for that coin. And when they don't find it, that's when panic begins. Okay. And that's when things can go from moving very gradually, very slowly to suddenly. Now, am I a crazy lady who's blowing this all out of proportion? Anything's a possibility. But these are big events that no one outside of a small group on FinTwit are talking about. And they have significant impacts in the capital markets, which are the liquidity markets that make our entire financial system run. If someone had asked me 2 weeks ago if I thought that the credit event would start with us, I would have said probably not. It probably would have started with China. But, with Country Garden or Evergrande or something from a collateral shortage there, because again, credit is not available. And that credit is needed to pay other institutions. And when those people don't get their money, it's all kind of a, domino effect. Okay, I've said a lot of things, but the most important thing is we need to stay frosty, because these are big events with big implications. And if we don't hear more about it, that's actually a little bit more concerning. Mr. Cooper, I'm just going to give you, this isn't tinfoil. I just want to explain a little bit about Mr. Cooper, their history, who own their largest shareholders, BlackRock and Vanguard, how those players are connected in other ways. So stepping back, when GMEC ran into all of its trouble, Mr. Cooper, then known as NationStar, was going to be our stalking horse bidder, meaning we did all this due diligence with them. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I went to Dallas, in the same room with Jay Bray, etc. Because the idea was we were going to transfer all of our NationStar. Now Mr. Cooper was going to buy all of that. Okay, they were going to go into the bankruptcy auction. They were stalking horse bidder. They were going to buy everything. So we did a ton of due diligence to make sure that acquisition worked perfectly. Well, it happened. Ocwen came in at the last minute, did a lot of back of the envelope math. They were very arrogant. They didn't understand GSC or agency servicing. They outbid Mr. Cooper, okay? And Mr. Cooper had been banking on getting our system of record, which was called Fiserv at the time, all of our assets. This was a big blow to them, okay? And at the time, they had, Fortress was involved as a majority stakeholder, West Eden's political connections there. So it was a big deal. And instead, what they went out and did is that they bought a whole bunch of servicing assets without any system to take care of them. And it was a real mess. Being in there, that whole shop is one of the biggest messes I've ever seen. And they did it still when the regulatory cycle was going. Somehow, through that entire time, even though they had complaints, etc., they never got in trouble with a CFPB. A lot of people think that was about their political connection, okay? Because at the time, Obama was in office, and West Eden's was a very big contributor. Is that what happened? I don't know, but I can tell you that was a perception. And so ever since, Mr. Cooper has not been well liked in the industry. And a lot of people, so in many ways, coming into this cycle, they sort of had a target on their back. And again, majority shareholders, BlackRock, Vanguard. So, the fact that these guys were targeted could mean by this hack that there could be, all sorts of implications there. I don't want to spread conspiracy, but I just want us to understand that there's a lot happening right now. I didn't even mention what happened with the banking system last week, but a lot of moving parts, a lot of narrative, and it's going to be important for us to be clear-eyed as we go through the next, honestly, for some time, because these things are, if not explicitly connected, they will combine to make some pretty turbulent and tumultuous times. Okay, again, I apologize if I sound a little, conspiratorial. I apologize how complicated all of this is, but it is just so crazy to me that we haven't heard more about what's going on with Mr. Cooper. Again, one of the biggest originators and servicers. And when you think about our economy, mortgage housing, anywhere from 12 to 20%, but from a pledging of assets, from a collateral perspective, mortgage backed securities are a big part of the engine. And this could truly create a credit event that I don't think anyone was expecting, especially not in this way. So, if tomorrow we all get news, everything's fine, that's fine. But I can tell you, no matter what, this is going to cause a complete administrative nightmare for these companies. And I promise you that the regulators will get involved. You cannot have a hack of this magnitude without the regulators getting involved. And Fannie and Freddie and the agencies, they can exercise their right to pull servicing. So there are many potential not great outcomes. And right before I started taping this interview, I also saw a tweet about one of, an executive at Nation, Mr. Cooper, sorry, selling stock. Yeah, I'm looking at their stock price of $56, and still just sitting there, in the green when all this is going on is just unbelievable to me. All right, so thank you for joining me for this breaking news. I will try to keep everyone posted as we go through the week, and as we get more news. And please, respond with questions here. I'm sure, again, this is just my idea of what could be going on based on my knowledge and experience. I'm not going to get all this right, but I'm just telling you what a potential path, what the potential implications could be. Okay, guys, stay tuned. There's a lot going out there. This could be a real inflection point, and one, just in a little bit of surprising manner that I don't think anybody was expecting. So, thanks again. Have a great day. If you want to reach out to me, leave a comment here. M3_Melody, MELODY on Twitter. You can leave a comment for me at Substack or LinkedIn. But I will do my best to try and answer questions, and just stay tuned. Thank you, and talk to you very soon. Thanks.